Captain Tyler Grant was having the kind of day that made him question every life choice that led him to hauling industrial supplies across the outer edges of known space. His coffee had gone cold 3 hours ago, his navigation system kept glitching, and he was still 2 weeks away from home. Nothing about this boring cargo run suggested it would become the most important moment in human history. Then his sensors started screaming. Tyler jolted upright in his pilot's seat, spilling what remained of his terrible coffee across the console. A distress beacon. Out here, in the middle of nowhere, on a moon that every star chart said was completely dead and lifeless. His first instinct was to ignore it. Space was full of ghost signals, old wrecks, and things that were better left alone. Besides, every regulation in the book said civilian cargo ships should never investigate unknown distress calls, especially this far from any human outpost or military patrol. But something stopped Tyler from flying past. Maybe it was boredom. Maybe it was curiosity. Or maybe it was that small voice in his head that sounded suspiciously like his grandmother, always telling him to help people when they needed it most. Whatever the reason, he found himself changing course and heading toward that barren moon. The descent through the thin atmosphere was rough. The moon barely had enough air to breathe, and what little existed was filled with dust that scraped against his hull. When Tyler finally broke through the cloud layer, his breath caught in his throat. Below him lay a warship unlike anything he had ever seen. It was enormous, easily 3 times the size of Earth's biggest military vessels. The ship had been split almost completely in half, its twisted metal still glowing red-hot in places where fires continued to burn. Debris was scattered across miles of rocky terrain. But it was the markings on the hull that made Tyler's hands start shaking on the controls. Drakthor. The Dragon People. The same species that had wiped out 17 human settlements in the past 5 years. The same monsters who had attacked New Haven Colony, where Tyler's younger brother had been living with his family. David had been 26 when he died in that attack, along with his wife and their baby daughter. Every instinct Tyler possessed told him to turn his ship around right now and get as far away as possible. Nothing good could come from getting involved with the Drakthor. They were warriors, conquerors, killers. They had made it very clear that humanity was nothing more than an obstacle to be removed from their path to galactic domination. Tyler's finger hovered over the thrust control, ready to leave this cursed place behind. That's when he heard it. At first he thought it was the wind whistling through the wreckage. But then he heard it again, clearer this time. Crying. High-pitched, desperate crying. Not the deep roar of adult Drakthor warriors that human soldiers described in their nightmares. This was different. This was the sound of children in terrible distress. Tyler felt his stomach twist into knots. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and made a decision that he knew he would either never regret or regret for the rest of his very short life. He landed his ship near the wreckage and grabbed his sidearm from its locker. His hands were still shaking as he sealed his environment suit and opened the airlock. The moon's surface was harsh and unforgiving. Sharp rocks crunched under his boots as he moved toward the broken warship. Smoke still rose from several sections, and the smell of burning metal filled his helmet's air filters. As Tyler got closer to the wreckage, the crying grew louder and more desperate. Then he saw them. 3 small creatures huddled together near a section of collapsed hull. They looked like miniature dragons, each one about the size of a large dog. Their scales, which should have been bright and vibrant, were dull and covered in dust. Their wings hung limply at their sides. And their eyes, those large golden eyes, were wide with pure terror. Behind the 3 youngsters lay their mother. She was massive, even lying broken on the ground. Her crimson scales were torn in multiple places, and dark blood pooled beneath her body. Her breathing was so shallow that Tyler could barely see her chest moving. She was dying, and there was no question about it. The smallest of the 3 babies spotted Tyler first. It let out a shriek of fear and scrambled backward, its tiny wings flaring out in a defensive posture that would have been adorable if the situation wasn't so heartbreaking. The little creature's voice cracked as it cried out in broken, heavily accented standard language. "Please don't hurt us. Mommy is dying. Please, please don't hurt us." Tyler stopped dead in his tracks. His weapon suddenly felt incredibly heavy in his hand. These weren't the monsters he had been taught to fear. These weren't the terrifying warriors who had destroyed human colonies. These were just 3 scared children trying desperately to protect their dying mother in a cold, hostile place where no help was coming. For a long moment, Tyler just stood there, torn between a lifetime of pain and loss and what his eyes were actually seeing in front of him. His brother's face flashed through his mind. Then his niece, who he had never gotten to meet. All the reasons he had to hate the Drakthor. But all he could see were 3 babies who were about to become orphans. Tyler slowly holstered his weapon and raised both hands to show he meant no harm. Then, against everything he had been taught, against all common sense and survival instinct, he took one careful step forward toward the enemy. Tyler Grant dropped to his knees slowly in the dusty ground, keeping his hands up where the frightened creatures could see them. His heart was pounding so hard he could hear it echoing inside his helmet. The 3 baby dragons hissed at him, showing tiny pointed fangs that would have been threatening if they weren't shaking so badly with fear. Their small bodies were pressed together, trying to make themselves look bigger and more dangerous than they actually were. The dying mother dragon opened one enormous golden eye. Her scales were a beautiful deep red color with edges of shining gold, though now they were covered in dust and blood. When she saw Tyler standing there in his human suit, some ancient instinct kicked in. She tried to push herself up, tried to position her broken body between the stranger and her babies. But her strength was completely gone. She collapsed back down with a sound that was half growl and half whimper of pure agony. The dark blood pooling beneath her body was spreading, and Tyler could see her breathing getting weaker with each passing second. "Hey, easy now," Tyler said quietly, pulling his emergency medical kit from his belt. His voice was shaking and he had to clear his throat. "I'm here to help you. I know you probably don't trust me. Honestly, I'm not even sure I trust myself right now with what I'm about to do. But those little ones need their mom. And you need to stay alive for them." The mother dragon, whose name was Commander Vera of the Drakthor military fleet, understood just enough of the human language to catch what he was saying. Through the fog of pain that filled her mind, she experienced something that shouldn't have been possible. She saw genuine worry and concern on the face of a human. Her entire life, everything her people had taught her, said that humans were weak creatures. They had no claws, no natural weapons, no scales to protect them. They were prey animals who had somehow stumbled into space travel. They were supposed to be easy to defeat, easy to control. But this human had come here alone. He had landed his ship next to a Drakthor warship wreckage, knowing full well what he might find. He wasn't carrying any real weapons that could hurt her. And now he was offering to help save her life. It didn't make any sense according to everything Vera knew about the universe. Vera tried to speak, but all that came out was a rasping sound in her native language that the human couldn't possibly understand. The 3 babies didn't move from their protective huddle. They were confused and terrified, not knowing if the stranger was about to hurt them or not. Tyler didn't wait for permission or approval. He couldn't afford to waste any more time. He started working immediately, his trained hands moving quickly even though they were shaking. He ripped open his medical kit and pulled out everything he had. The problem was obvious right away. His equipment was designed for human biology. Everything from the bandages to the medicine to the diagnostic tools was made for human bodies. Drakthor biology was completely alien and different. But Tyler was a frontier cargo pilot, and people who worked the frontier learned one important skill above all others. They learned how to improvise with whatever they had or they died. Simple as that. He grabbed the structural foam canister that was meant for sealing hull breaches and ships. His hands worked quickly, spraying the fast-hardening foam across the worst of Vera's bleeding wounds. The foam wasn't meant for living tissue, but it would stop the bleeding, and that was what mattered most right now. Then he pulled out his portable blood filtration unit, the one that was supposed to clean his own blood if he got poisoned. Tyler started jury-rigging adapter cables, connecting tubes and wires in ways that the equipment manual definitely never intended. Time stopped meaning anything. Hours melted together into one long blur of desperate work. Tyler's suit was covered in dark alien blood. His fingers were cramping from the delicate work. Sweat poured down his face inside his helmet. But he kept going, adjusting and readjusting his makeshift medical setup. The 3 baby dragons, whose names were Riven, Tessa, and Little Jack, watched everything in complete stunned silence. They had never seen anything like this before in their short lives. This soft creature with no claws, no fangs, no natural defenses, was fighting with everything he had to save their mother. In Drakthor culture, the strong survived and the weak died. Mercy was considered a flaw, a weakness that got you killed. Nobody helped their enemies. Nobody showed compassion to those who couldn't fight back. But here was this human doing exactly that. When Tyler finally sat back on his heels, he was completely exhausted. Every muscle in his body ached. His hands were shaking from fatigue. Alien blood covered his suit and gloves. But Vera was still breathing. Her chest rose and fell in a steady rhythm now. The bleeding had stopped. She was stable. Barely hanging on but alive. Little Jack, the smallest of the 3 babies, took a careful step toward Tyler. The baby dragon tilted his head to one side, studying the strange creature with curious golden eyes. Why? Jack asked in simple, broken standard language. We are enemies. Why help us? Tyler looked at the small dragon and felt his throat tighten with emotion. He thought about his nephew back on Earth, the little boy who loved dinosaurs and space stories. He thought about all the children who had died in this stupid, endless war. Because that's what humans do, Tyler said simply, his voice rough with exhaustion. When someone needs help, we help them. Doesn't matter who they are. 3 long days passed on that forgotten moon at the edge of nowhere. Tyler had completely transformed his cargo bay into something that resembled a hospital room, though calling it that was probably being generous. He had dragged every piece of equipment he could find from his ship's storage compartments. Medical supplies, diagnostic tools, even the spare environment systems were now jury-rigged to keep Commander Vera alive and breathing. The cargo bay looked like a disaster zone, with cables running everywhere and equipment beeping at all hours. The 3 baby dragons stayed close by the whole time, never wandering far from their mother or from Tyler. They watched his every single move with those intelligent golden eyes that seemed to take in and understand far more than children their age should. At first, they had kept their distance, still nervous and unsure about this strange human. But hour by hour, day by day, something began to change. They started to trust him. Riven, who was the oldest of the 3 at maybe 5 or 6 years old in human terms, turned out to be naturally curious about how things worked. He started helping Tyler adjust the medical monitoring equipment, his small claws surprisingly gentle as he touched the sensitive controls. The young dragon learned quickly, understanding the basic readouts faster than Tyler had expected. Whenever an alarm beeped, Riven would look at the display and call out what was wrong before Tyler even got there. Tessa, the middle child, became fascinated with the food synthesizer. Tyler had shown her once how to use it and she picked it up immediately. Her small claws were remarkably deft and precise as she worked the controls, programming meals for everyone. She even started experimenting, trying to create food that would be suitable for both human and Drakthor digestion. Most of her experiments tasted terrible, but Tyler ate them anyway and thanked her sincerely each time. The smile on her face made the awful taste worth it. And then there was Jack. Brave, tiny little Jack, who had appointed himself as Tyler's personal shadow and constant companion. Wherever Tyler went, Jack was right there behind him, his small wings trailing on the floor. When Tyler worked on repairs, Jack sat beside him and handed him tools without being asked. When Tyler ate his meals, Jack curled up next to him. When Tyler finally collapsed from exhaustion to sleep for a few hours, Jack stood guard nearby like a miniature dragon sentinel. On the second night, while Vera slept in her fitful, pain-filled rest, the 3 youngsters approached Tyler with a question. They wanted him to tell them about Earth. Their teachers and military instructors had taught them that Earth was a weak planet filled with soft, pathetic creatures who were just waiting to be conquered. They had been told humans were primitive and backward, with no real strength or value. Tyler leaned back against the cargo bay wall and smiled. He told them completely different stories than what they had been taught. He painted pictures with his words of massive oceans that stretched from horizon to horizon, so vast that you could sail for weeks and never see land. He described forests where trees grew hundreds of feet tall, where life existed in wild, untamed abundance. He told them about the African savanna where he had grown up, where animals of every kind lived together in a delicate balance. Then he told them about people. Real people, not the cartoon villains their military had described. He told them about families who took in stray dogs and cats, giving homes to animals that nobody else wanted. He talked about firefighters who rushed into burning buildings, risking their own lives to carry out strangers they had never met. He spoke of doctors who traveled to dangerous places to heal the sick, of teachers who spent their own money to buy supplies for poor students, of ordinary people who gave everything they had to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. You see, we're not strong because we're good at fighting, Tyler explained while all 3 baby dragons listened with complete, rapt attention. Plenty of species in the galaxy are better fighters than us. We're strong because we choose to care about others, even when it's difficult. Even when it costs us something. Even when it hurts us to do it. Jack slowly moved closer and curled his small body against Tyler's leg, resting his head on Tyler's knee. This was something that Drakthor children never, ever did with anyone outside their immediate family. It was a sign of complete trust and affection that was usually reserved only for parents. Are all humans like you? Jack asked in his small, quiet voice. Tyler thought about that question carefully. He thought about all the good people he knew and all the selfish people he had met. He thought about humanity's best moments and its worst failures. Not all of us, Tyler admitted honestly. Some humans are selfish. Some are cruel. Some don't care about anyone but themselves. But enough of us try to do the right thing. Enough of us care. And we teach our children to care too. That's what matters. On the fourth morning, Commander Vera finally woke up completely and fully. Her golden eyes opened and focused clearly for the first time in days. She looked at Tyler first, studying this human who had saved her life. Then her gaze moved to her 3 babies, who were playing nearby with some of Tyler's tools. They were healthy. They were safe. They were laughing and making happy sounds. Laughter. When was the last time she had heard Drakthor children laugh? The war had stolen joy from an entire generation of her people. You saved us, Vera said, her voice rough and damaged but understandable. Why? Tyler met her intense gaze without looking away. His answer was simple and honest. Because someone had to. The peaceful days on that quiet moon ended in the worst way possible. Tyler's warning scanner suddenly started screaming so loud that he jumped and hit his head on the cargo bay ceiling. His heart immediately started racing as he rushed to the control panel. What he saw on the display made his blood turn to ice. A Drakthor battle fleet had just dropped out of hyperspace. Not 1 ship. Not 2. 10 massive warships appeared in the sky above them like dark angels coming to deliver judgment. Each ship was bristling with weapons that could turn his little cargo vessel into dust in seconds. Tyler felt his stomach twist into painful knots. He ran to where Vera was resting, his boots pounding against the metal floor. Vera, we've got company. Big company. Are they here for you? Commander Vera's face changed in a way that Tyler had never seen before. It was an expression caught somewhere between pure fear and sad resignation, like someone who had been waiting for bad news and finally received it. Yes, she said quietly, her voice heavy with defeat. Admiral Kron. He has come to execute me. Execute you? Tyler felt confused and angry at the same time. For what? What did you do wrong? For treason, Vera said, and the word hung in the air like poison. For saving children instead of conquering new worlds. For refusing to force young hatchlings into military service. For daring to believe there was a better way than endless war. That's when Tyler learned the real truth. Commander Vera hadn't been running away from battle like a coward. She had been operating a secret underground network for years, quietly evacuating orphaned baby dragons from the Empire's brutal military training programs. The Drakthor Empire took children, sometimes as young as 3 years old, and turned them into soldiers. Vera couldn't watch it anymore. She had been saving as many as she could, giving them a chance at a real childhood. Her ship had suffered a critical malfunction during one of these secret rescue missions. The entire vessel shook violently as the docking clamps attached to Tyler's ship. Heavy footsteps echoed through the corridors like thunder, getting closer and closer. Then the airlock didn't just open. It exploded inward with a blast that sent pieces of metal flying everywhere. Admiral Kron entered with a dozen armored warriors behind him, each one carrying weapons that looked like they could tear through solid steel. The Admiral himself was absolutely massive. He stood nearly 4 meters tall, towering over everyone like a building. His scales were midnight black and covered in scars from countless battles. Each scar told a story of violence and survival. His eyes were cold and empty, showing no mercy, no compassion, no feeling at all. Just cold, calculating military efficiency. Commander Vera, Admiral Kron growled in a voice that sounded like grinding stones. You are hereby charged with desertion, treason, and weakness. The sentence for these crimes is death. Immediate execution. The 3 baby dragons screamed in terror and rushed to their mother's side. They pressed their small bodies against her, trying to protect her even though they were tiny and helpless. No. Please don't. Jack cried, his small voice breaking with desperation. She saved us. She's good. Please don't hurt her. Saving the weak is not the Drakthor way, Admiral Kron snarled with disgust in his voice. Weakness must be eliminated. He raised his massive plasma rifle, pointing it directly at Vera's head. The weapon hummed with deadly energy ready to fire. Tyler Grant stepped between them. One single human. Unarmed. Wearing nothing but his cargo pilot jumpsuit. Facing down the most feared warrior species in the entire galaxy. Move aside, human, Admiral Kron commanded, his voice filled with contempt. Or you will die with the traitor. Your choice. No, Tyler said simply. Just that one word. Admiral Kron's eyes widened slightly, showing surprise for just a moment. In his entire military career, prey species had never stood their ground before. They always ran away. They begged for their lives. They tried to bargain. They never just said no and stood firm. You call her weak? Tyler continued, and despite his racing heart and shaking hands, his voice was steady and strong. She's stronger than you'll ever be, Admiral. It takes no courage at all to kill helpless people. Any coward with a weapon can pull a trigger. A child could do that. But saving lives when everyone around you says to destroy them? Protecting children when your entire culture demands you sacrifice them? Going against everything you were taught because you know it's wrong? That takes real strength. That takes courage you don't have. The cargo bay had gone completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Every single Drakthor warrior stood frozen, staring at the human who dared to challenge their admiral. Some of their expressions showed shock. Others showed confusion. A few showed something that might have been respect. If showing mercy makes her a traitor, Tyler said, looking the admiral straight in the eye without flinching, then I'm guilty of the same crime. So if you're going to shoot someone, shoot me first. Let's see how brave you really are. Admiral Kron raised his massive weapon higher, his finger tightening on the trigger. The energy core hummed louder, charging up for a kill shot. Tyler stood his ground, refusing to move even 1 inch. His legs wanted to run. His survival instincts were screaming at him to get out of the way. But he didn't flinch. He didn't step aside. He just stood there, staring death in the face. Then something incredible happened. Commander Vera moved. Despite her terrible wounds that should have kept her down for weeks, despite days of barely surviving, despite her broken body being held together by jury-rigged human medical equipment, she rose to her feet. Her legs shook with the effort. Dark blood seeped through several of her bandages. But she stood tall and proud, placing herself directly between Tyler and the Admiral's weapon. Her massive wings spread wide, creating a shield that completely covered the human who had saved her life. No, Vera said, and her voice carried all the authority of a veteran military commander who had led troops through countless battles. You want to kill traitors, Kron? Then start with me. I'm the one you came for. But you will have to go through him first. And I swear on my honor, if you harm even one hair on this human's head, I will spend my last dying breath making you regret that decision. Then something even more amazing happened. Riven, Tessa, and little Jack spread their tiny wings, copying their mother exactly. 3 baby dragons, so small they barely came up to Tyler's waist, stood in a protective line in front of him. A wounded commander and 3 hatchlings, protecting a single unarmed human against a dozen heavily armed warriors. One of Admiral Kron's soldiers lowered his weapon slowly. His face showed confusion and uncertainty. Then another warrior lowered his gun. Then 3 more. Then half the squad was just standing there, not sure what to do anymore. He's just a human, one warrior muttered, loud enough for everyone to hear. Just pray. Wait. But he actually saved them. He saved his enemies. When we would have just left them here to die alone. What none of them knew was that Tyler's ship had an automated distress beacon that had been broadcasting everything since he landed. Every word. Every action. Every moment of this confrontation. The signal had spread across the sector, then across multiple systems, then across the entire galaxy. Billions and billions of beings on thousands of different worlds were watching this live feed right now. They watched a single human stand completely unarmed against certain death, willing to die to protect his enemies. They watched Drakthor warriors, the most feared conquerors in known space, question their orders for the first time in generations. Admiral Kron's hand began to tremble slightly. His weapon wavered just a bit. This is weakness, he spat out the words like poison. This is exactly why our empire is becoming soft. No, Vera said firmly, her voice growing stronger. This is the strength we forgot we had. We built an entire empire on fear and conquest. We took our children and turned them into weapons before they could even understand what childhood meant. We destroyed entire civilizations and called it progress. And we called all of that power. She gestured toward Tyler with one clawed hand. But this human showed me what real power actually looks like. True power is having the strength to help someone when you could easily harm them. Real courage is saving a life when destroying it would be so much easier. We lost that somewhere along the way. He reminded me that we could find it again. The Admiral's weapon lowered slowly inch by inch. All around him, his warriors stood in complete confusion. Their entire lives, everything they had been taught since they were hatchlings, everything they believed about strength and weakness and power, was crashing down against what they had just witnessed with their own eyes. Admiral Kron stood there for what felt like an eternity. Then, without saying another single word, he turned and walked away. His heavy footsteps echoed through the corridors as he left. His warriors followed behind him in confused silence. But the most important thing was this: he didn't shoot. He had the power. He had the authority. He had every reason according to Drakthor law. But he didn't pull that trigger. And that one decision changed absolutely everything. The recording of what happened spread like wildfire across every communication network in known space. Within hours, every species, every planet, every space station had seen it. A human simple act of compassion fractured the mighty Drakthor Empire overnight, splitting it right down the middle. Commander Vera's underground network came out of hiding into the light of day. Thousands upon thousands of Drakthor revealed they had been secretly working against the war machine, believing in something beyond endless conquest. Parents who wanted their children to have real childhoods. Soldiers tired of meaningless violence. Citizens who remembered when their culture valued more than just military strength. The Galactic Council, which had dismissed humanity as irrelevant newcomers who barely mattered, suddenly sent urgent diplomatic delegations to Earth. Other alien species started sharing their own stories about humans. Stories of human kindness toward strangers. Stories of humans being impossibly stubborn about helping others. Stories of humans who risked and sacrificed everything for people they had never even met before. Tyler hadn't wanted any of this. He just wanted to go home, finish his cargo delivery, and maybe take a long vacation. Instead, he had accidentally sparked a revolution that would reshape galactic politics for generations. Commander Vera and her 3 hatchlings eventually had to leave, heading back to their people to face whatever consequences awaited them. But before they departed, little Jack wrapped his small arms around Tyler's leg one final time, squeezing tight. "Will we see you again?" the small dragon asked, his voice full of hope and sadness mixed together. Tyler knelt down and gently ruffled the scales on Jack's head, the way he used to mess up his nephew's hair back on Earth. "Count on it, buddy. You're not getting rid of me that easily." As Tyler's cargo ship finally left that forgotten moon, heading back toward human space and home, something remarkable was happening in the Galactic Senate chambers. A new saying began spreading among the delegates, repeated in hundreds of different languages across thousands of worlds. Humans are not dangerous because they are physically strong. They are dangerous because they choose mercy when others would choose hate. They choose compassion when others would choose fear. They choose to help when others would choose to harm. And when a human truly stands for something they believe in, entire empires tremble. Not from military force, but from the crushing weight of their conscience. Months passed. The Drakthor Empire signed its first genuine peace treaty in over 300 years of constant warfare. The treaty ceremony included one very unusual clause that nobody had ever seen before in galactic diplomacy. A single human cargo freighter captain would be present as an honored witness to the signing. Tyler Grant, simple cargo pilot and accidental revolutionary, stood in those grand Senate chambers before all the leaders of the galaxy. He thought about 3 scared baby dragons crying for their dying mother on a cold moon. He thought about a commander who learned mercy from someone she had been taught to see as prey. He thought about his younger brother David, who had died in a war that maybe, just maybe, was finally coming to an end. Tyler had once told little Jack something important. Being human isn't about being fearless. It's about doing the right thing even when you're absolutely terrified. Even when everything inside you is screaming to run away. Tyler had been terrified that day on the moon. His hands had shaken. His heart had raced. His instincts had told him to leave. But he had done the right thing anyway despite his fear. And because of that one choice, the galaxy would never, ever be the same again.